Mitch joins us from South Florida to talk Liverpool, the wild end to the Premier League season top four push, City and Chelsea Champions League final, and Tottenham's manager prospects. We down here in the Rat Tail Bunker and Barbershop Studio, and this is the Boys in Bolos podcast. Welcome back to the Boys in Bolos podcast, Jarrett. Season 2 has ended.
It's a wrap.
Season 2 of the Boys in Bolos, I mean. It's not season 2 of the Premier League. Premier League is in, I don't know what season, but it's been a lot of
I was
seasons.
like, what other seasons are you talking? Dude, are you telling people about our super secret telenovela that no one knows about?
No, it's season 2 of Boys in Bolos. It's a wrap.
Season 2 of Boys and Bowls is a wrap. And tonight we have a guest all the way, I believe, from Florida. Mitch, welcome to the pod. How you doing?
Great. And yeah, I am coming all the way from South Florida.
How is South Florida?
Hot. Very hot.
It must be
Hot.
because it's warm up here. It was like 82 and some maybe 60% humidity today. So it must be like, what, 95 there with 80% humidity?
Honestly, we at this point, we measure temperature by how long it takes you to soak your shirt with sweat. And we're at about like 3 seconds outside.
You walk outside, just a flame.
Yeah, if you walk from your car to the grocery store, you're just like, well, I showered.
Ugh. Yuck.
Jeff loves the heat, and when I say loves the heat, I'm being overly sarcastic. He despises the heat. So, yeah, like many New Englanders, there's two things that New Englanders do in the summer. One of them is sweat, and the other one is complain about sweating. So we're just into that period now.
Well, let's kick it off with Liverpool's surprise ascension into third place. Because, Mitch, you are a Liverpool fan. As
I am.
Our listeners can't hear it, but he's wearing his Liverpool jersey.
Yes.
His dog made an appearance with its Liverpool, whatever they call dog
Dog jersey, I don't know.
Dog
jer-
wear,
yeah.
dog attire.
What's
Dog
the
sweater?
name of the dog? Is it Milner?
No, actually, his name is Dulce, which is very confusing for any Spanish speakers because he's a boy, but he has a girl's name. But
Oh.
his color is Dulce de Leche, so...
Dulce de leche. See, that's very Argentine of you. So
Yep.
this is just a little,
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah, so Liverpool, they found themselves in a position where they just had to win out like their last couple games.
And they did.
And they did. And who did they play today? I don't even know.
Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace, and they just did a little tap dance.
Yeah,
on
they
their
said goodbye,
heads.
Roy Hodgson. Take this L. So what we were talking about pre-recording, and then I was like, Jeff, start recording. I want to say something about this. Was that Mane, who's had a weird season, went and got his body checked. Could you guys talk more about that? Can you let me in on that? Because I remember reading that,
Okay.
but I don't know what that is. That like a checkup where they're
No. This is like a thing. Okay, so I do a lot of cycling, and this happens a lot with cyclists. Like they stop performing at like a high level, like they stop winning races, or they start like having to drop out of races or something, and so they literally go to through tests in a lab, like a physio lab, where they get in the thing, they do the blood oxygen, and they do.
That's where they're running on the treadmill.
The
and they
treadmill
have
trail
the
and the
thing
thing.
in their mouth.
I'm maybe wasn't that in depth or whatever, but he probably got some blood work done. Make sure he hadn't have an infection.
Oh, I'm sure it was really in depth.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a multi-million dollar human asset. Like
Yeah.
he's.
And
They
so
wanna
he
know.
probably was just making sure, and comes back and nothing was wrong with him. Weird season.
Mitch, do you have any other insight into this? Because I think this is a more fascinating part of professional soccer.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was mostly down to, I think it was psychological. And I think that getting that test was, let's put it this way, when you're playing and you blame your shoes and it's really not your shoes, you're all messed up, but then you go off to the side, you retie your shoes and all of a sudden everything's fine. Nothing changed, but you feel better because you did something. I think that's what happened. And this whole season has been a big blow for Liverpool players and fans. And I think everybody has slowly figured out in the team how to deal with just the sort of crushing weight of everything. I think Mane was one of the last to sort of figure it out. And yeah, just the stress playing on there. I think getting the body check just helped sort him out, being like, well, I did something. Something's got to come through. And then on top of that, I mean, Crystal Palace, this is his 8th consecutive game scoring against them. So
Ooh, that's
good
a
timing.
stat. That's a stat. The reason why I was so interested by this, because I think you're totally right. For me, it was what he was doing was is the excuse my physique? Did I put on weight? But now that I can say that it's not, I can move on and realize it's a total mental thing and it's a mindset, and I need to switch that, because all the check was like you said, it was like the Michael Jordan water in Space Jam. Nothing really changed. It was just their mentality about their perspective. And when Jeff brought it up, I just wanted to say, has Eden Hazard done one of these bio things? Because he put on like 15 pounds when he went from Chelsea to Madrid that summer. And 15 pounds on a small body, he's like 5'6", is a lot of weight.
Yeah, I don't think he
but
got the test because he knew the test would come back. That would just say he's fat.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to be the fly on the wall. They're like, Eden, you're fat.
You're fat. You got to do some running there, bud.
Yeah, do some running is a light statement. Do some running is like, what, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about Liverpool and focus on the future, because now we're not talking about hypotheticals. Liverpool is going to be in the Champions League. What does that mean? Who's on the move? Who's staying? We've talked about this normally with a lot of guests. You know, your team comes off and say, hey, what do you think is going to happen next year? But now we can actually talk, we could talk raw data here. So now you're in the Champions League. What's going to happen? Because I think Real Madrid is about to have a fire sale on a lot of their players, per something Jeff was saying earlier that he was reading, which makes sense. Zidane's going to leave. There's going to be a turnover. What players are coming in potentially to Liverpool? And on one of our most recent podcasts, Chris Bowerbank, who's a Liverpool fan, was saying that there was a defender who was coming in, and I'm blanking on the name.
Ate.
Yes. How far along is that?
Bordering on personal terms agreed. Leipzig are okay with him leaving for the right price, and the price is somewhere around the 45 million euro range. Konate has publicly stated that he prefers Liverpool, and because Liverpool and Leipzig have a good relationship, Liverpool and Red Bull in general have a good relationship, it's looking pretty set. There's also some rumors about Koulibaly from Napoli, but that's always there, and it never reaches anything because generally Koulibaly is just too expensive. But Konate, yeah, it seems to be pretty advanced. They haven't opened up terms with Leipzig yet, but Leipzig has given the green light, as far as I know, to start those negotiations.
For me, it seems like they need to get rid of Firmino, and just because of his drop off in production this year,
it's been off a cliff.
And yeah, I think Salah may be tempted to leave as well, but who knows with Salah. And then they need to bring in a number 9, right? I mean,
I think they definitely need another scoring option.
Yeah.
How much money do you think Liverpool have, Mitch, to go find a forward? Because a lot of times, we want to dream, but the reality is if you want top forward, you need to probably shell 120 plus, whatever that looks like.
So I think it's one of those situations where it's not about how much money they have. It's about how much money they're willing to put. Because Liverpool financially are doing great, but they also are prioritizing, without going ridiculous, they're not to the Arsenal level, right? They are prioritizing financial stability. They're not willing to spend, Abramovich money for a season to see what happens. And the way they've kind of done stuff is they're not going to buy unless they can offload. So I think the first priority is offloading Shaqiri, offloading Origi, offloading anyone considered kind of excess. But the thing is, we've already kind of gotten to a pretty lean squad, realistically. So I think those are the only two that you can really offload. And then it becomes a matter of, you can lose one person from the front 3 because you're only going to be able to bring in one. But if you start offloading more than one person from the front 3, you're going to start running into, again, a situation where you have maybe 4 people total. So, for example, you mentioned Firmino. If Firmino gets sold, Salah doesn't get sold, right? And vice versa. I think at this point, the priority is probably going to be, like I said, offloading the excess, there's talks about Griezmann, coming to
Do you want
Liverpool.
Griezmann?
I don't want him as a starter, and I don't want him for, starting forward prices. And that's what's going to happen. He's 30. That's not terrible, but he's 30 and he's never played in the Premier League. And he's going to be in one of our most important positions. And he can play across the front 3. That's great. But by the time he's adjusted, he's settled, he's good to go, he's also going to start on the physical decline. And he is a player who relies on not entirely on his physical abilities, but he still needs that pace, especially if you're going to be in the front 3. So personally, no, not a fan of the Griezmann transfer. I think Firmino doesn't leave. I think what you do is you buy a replacement for Firmino and let Firmino ride the bench. I think realistically, Mane or Salah go. As much as it hurts me to say that, I get it, especially if we get a lot of money for it. And I mean, both of them are 28, so they're still good. They're still in the prime. We can get good money for them and invest in somebody that's like 25, 23, somewhere around there that we can build on. And the age thing is important for Klopp. Klopp likes to build, and he's already said he's going to stay for a bit longer. So
I really think that losing Gigi Wijnaldum like after this season is actually going to be a huge issue filling his role. I think Thiago, he just had like never really panned out in the midfield this year. He may have improved like a tiny bit, but I think you guys need a central midfielder. Like,
you think they need a central midfielder over a forward?
I think there's
in
going to be
addition to.
I think in addition to. I think you need a forward. You bring another forward because of depth. You need depth because you're going to be playing at Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup season, just like every other team. And Jota comes back healthy, hopefully. You get production out of Salah or Mane, and then you need another forward. But then you lose Gigi Wijnaldum, and you lose and Thiago's just not that great. And Henderson comes back, but Henderson plays more of a defensive role. You need somebody moving the ball forward, pushing the ball forward, and I don't know who that player is right now. And I think that Thiago just hacks people's ankles. He draws more yellows than he does anything else.
Do you think another season for Thiago will bring him up, or is he kind of maybe just not going to cut it in the Prem, Mitch?
Honestly, Thiago's been, if not man of the match, borderline man of the match for the last like 3 games. So the thing with Thiago is he isn't getting yellows anymore. He's slowed down a bit on that. He's still getting fouls, but his yellows have slowed down big time. But the thing is, the yellows has been his thing. I remember like maybe a month or two ago, I sent Jarrett a stat. Thiago has as many goals as he has yellow cards in his career, not just at Liverpool in general. That's always been his thing. I think Gini leaving hurts, but I think it's also an opportunity because I totally agree. We have needed a real, if not a 10, somebody that can at least push through, put pressure into the box, if not getting passes directly into the box, at least make really good runs into the box that forces some kind of disruption. Keita was supposed to be that, but that didn't pan out. And I think now is the opportunity to get that player. What the problem with Thiago, especially at the beginning, was he was redundant. He was doing what Wijnaldum already did, and Wijnaldum was already settled. So he was redundant. And instead, we put him into weird positions that didn't work. I think we finally figured out where Thiago works. But it's also understanding that Thiago's not going to give you an assist. That's not his job. His job is to get the ball to Trent or to make sure you don't lose the ball and to get it to someone who can put in an assist. The problem is that your targets right now are to get an assist are Trent, Andy Robertson, or Firmino. And that's not enough. You need somebody in the midfield to start doing it because if you just use the wide players, they are too predictable because they're out wide. There's not enough options, and Firmino's not producing. So that's another one with replacing Firmino, that replacing Firmino doesn't just mean getting a 9. Replacing Firmino can be getting a 10 and then bringing in Jota and just letting Jota and Salah become your main goal scorers. With that said, I still think we need a 9. I think it goes center back, 9, midfielder, and then if we have some time after that, I think you need to start getting some backup for Fabinho.
Backup for Fabinho as a holding midfielder.
Yep, because we don't have anyone except for Henderson, and Henderson gets injured in that position a lot because he has to start making tackles that mess with his ankles. And it's not the best position for him either. You don't want Henderson playing as a defensive mid. He can do it, but you want him farther up. You want him pushing. That's one thing we missed tremendously this season is we're talking about kind of pushing through. He doesn't put in a lot of assists, but he puts pressure on the back line that makes them freak out for a second, that allows Mane to get in between the lines. So, but yeah, no, the last thing we would need is a backup for Fabinho, just in case somebody's injured or we just need to rotate him or bad form, whatever. I mean, the last couple of games for Fabinho have not been good comparatively for him. So, and I think a lot of that is he's tired He's had to play a ton in different positions, but he's kind of guaranteed a spot anyway. He's going to get bailed out no matter what happens, and we'll defend him. So,
to your point on Thiago being the best player for Liverpool last 3 games, I'll be the first to say I haven't watched that. I've been uber focused, obviously, on Chelsea, just trying to make top 4, so I just haven't been able to watch the Chelsea games. The Liverpool games as much. I think Thiago could probably settle in. I mean, he's fairly malleable. What he did with Barcelona was great. What he did with Bayern was obviously great. I think maybe a little bit more time, having actual real full-time center backs behind him will help him tremendously. He's going to get the ball in a better position, be able to turn. Everything's going to be better for him, I think. So I actually think next season, maybe he'll have a better season. I totally forgot that whole stat about how he has just as many yellow cards as he does goals, because earlier in the season when he would come on, he would just get beat with pace. He would get turned. He was always a step behind. Like, if you watched him, and if it were a Sunday League game, I'd say, yeah, that guy's hungover. That's all that is. You can tell he has quality. You can tell the way he moves the ball, he has quality, but he's so behind, he must be hungover. Like, that's what he looked like. But I think with an extra season, better player in front of him, two better players behind him, I'm excited to see. Do you think Liverpool, with that said, and they get the right pieces, which I have no doubt that Klopp and, Liverpool as a club will not drop the ball in transfers, to be honest. I think they've been really good with that. They're not like Chelsea. They're not frivolously spending and seeing price tags and shiny things and going and buying them and basically gambling to some degree. I'm sure they've had some bad buys if you look at it historically, but do you think Liverpool are back up battling City next year? Or do you think it's going to be a battle of the Manchester for a while Liverpool maybe take a breath?
I don't think any team at this point can consistently compete against City, only because City are so settled across the board. One thing that fantasy made abundantly clear is how annoying City's rotation is, because you play a player and he's got 0 points, but you can get 1 million points. But that also shows you that the amount of rotation City can do and still dominate teams, I mean, absolutely splatter them across the ground, is it's insane. And that's something that I don't think any team right now can catch. And it's, as much as I hate to say it, as much as I hate to recognize this, you have to recognize that City maintained their goal scoring form without Aguero for most of the season, without really a true striker. They were playing like, I don't know, Barcelona back when they would play their 4-6-0 formation with Cesc Fabregas, as their false nine.
Right, 2012, 2013, when Spain did that in the Euros too. They played 6 midfielders in one. It was
where it's just the quality of the play is so good, you just need somebody to have a foot to stick out, right? And honestly, half the time, it wasn't even anyone hitting it into the goal. It was basically Iniesta rebounding it off of somebody's foot into the goal, right? So I don't think, and Man City's going to go and spend. So you're not going to be able to catch up to them. I think what it is it's a fight for second place, and it's a fight for challenging City in 2 to 3 years. And I think that Liverpool can do. I think for that, it's basically whoever the rest of the top 4. It's Man United, as long as they can sort out, their forward issues. Because Cavani's not a long-term fix. Chelsea, if they can just get their players to gel and get a forward. Liverpool, if they can get a forward. Everyone needs a forward. But yeah, that's kind of the 3 that are going to be vying for second to fourth. First is guaranteed to City unless something drastic happens or somebody decides to just be inspired, right? And all it takes is City to have enough bad run of form and somebody else to have enough good run of form to kind of offset it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Jeff, what do you think about that? Because I think he's spot on.
Yeah, it's and I've been saying this probably for like the last couple of weeks, is that
I feel like you've been shaking your fist at the sky while you say it's like, oh
yeah,
man,
well, my only gripe with it is that like the financial fair play stuff and City can just basically they fund themselves, so they shouldn't even be in the Champions League this year, to be completely honest. And the fact that we're all praising, everyone on Sky Sports, everybody everywhere is praising City and how they're such a great team. But yeah, they have their roster's worth $1.3 billion. They got 2 starting 11s. They've been relatively uninjured this season. I mean, they bought a freaking center, one of the better English center backs in the league, just to sit him on the bench so they can have a homegrown player. I mean, and they're about to buy Harry Kane. So how are we operating in a situation where it's like fair that City gets to do whatever they want financially? if you go look at the table, I mean, the teams that spend the most money, basically it shook out, besides West Ham, exactly like it did last season, exactly like how you'd expect. The top spenders finished in the top 6 and or 7th or whatever. And, it's if they're going to spend the most money, they're going to splash the most cash, and they're going to keep the best players on their payroll, and they're going to probably, I agree, they're probably going to win again. It's like we're chasing after this team that, yeah, I mean,
you're chasing after City is what it is.
You're chasing after City, yeah.
Thinking
That's
about...
one thing too, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mitch.
That's one thing too with City that a lot of people talk about how much they've spent, obviously on players and stuff, but I don't think enough credit is given to City, and I don't mean this positively, credit in the sense of like recognize that they do it. I don't think they get enough credit for how sort of well administrated the club is, in that they've made a ton of moves to diversify and to do all kinds of stuff, which is really just a way of kind of hiding or securing themselves against financial fair play, against other restrictions. The Ake, the Ake transfer is kind of that perfect example of how they operate. They know who they have, they know what they can do, but they also know how to dodge really well, to the kind of level that, RB Leipzig is doing, where RB Leipzig is still they still follow the 50+1 rule for Germany because they have employees who own part of the company to exploit a loophole, right? So that they can then invest directly, because it's like, oh, well, since these company workers own the club, they represent the company, we can put money in from them. Like that's one thing that City doesn't get enough credit for, that they know how to run it. And it's something that I think United has tried to do, but they haven't succeeded at it because the Glazers are just more interested in stealing money. But that's going to be one of the hardest things. And that's one thing that some of the clubs have been able to do. I think Liverpool has been able to do well in that. They've been able they've been able to kind of figure out how to play the administrative game, how to play the legal game. And that's kind of the next step, I think, for a lot of teams. It's not just, it sucks that that's the reality of the Premier League, that it's not just a game where the best players and the best coach, or, where you just get to watch all this beautiful stuff happening all the time. It is a money game, and City knows how to play it.
And that's why I have, like, part of my gripe with people getting so hot and bothered about the Super League is that at the end of the day, those are the top clubs that were going to be in this league anyway. And for Sky Sports and all these people to come out and be like, it's taking away the game, it's taking away the spirit of the game. It's like, come on, guys. This back when the Premier League, 20 years ago when it became like the Barclays Premier League, this is basically the Super League of English soccer. Like the structure of English soccer and how these top teams are operating is they spend the most money basically unchecked to buy all the best players. It's not fair. It's never going to be fair. It's the trickle down of money is like very, very inconsequential. And for people to get all like, I don't know, they're basically just denying the fact that it's already kind of operating that way.
The Champions League is already the Super League.
Yeah.
In order to get into the Champions League, you have to finish in your domestic league, which means you have to play somewhere between 38 to 42 games consistently throughout a season, and you have to finish at the top. In order to do that, you need to have squad depth probably into 16, 17, more like into 22, 24 if you want to win the league and then actually be in these top things. It's already the Super League, but people don't want to admit that. And one of the things that Mitch said, which I just think that more people need to think about, was when Eddie and I were in the new school and I was living in New York, I went to the first NYCFC game at Yankee Stadium. And I remember going to that game. It was awesome. They actually played the Revolution, and David Villa scored the second goal. So NYCFC won. And it was really cool. It was like, MLS is here. We're in Yankee Stadium. It's cool. And then I read this article the next day, and it was like, Man City are starting to essentially, this isn't what they're saying, this is like how I see it, it's what Mitch is basically saying. They're playing 3D chess, and the rest of the world in soccer is still trying to play checkers. Buy a player, sell a player. They're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put a team in Sydney. We're going to put a team in New York City. We're going to have our team in Qatar, I believe. We're going to have our team in Manchester, and we're just going to, that's all revenue. And what they can start to do is say, oh, well, our revenue is $3 billion. And then they can spend the $3 billion in City. Spend Obviously, the MLS is a little bit different, but they can spend that in Qatar. They can spend that in Australia, depending upon what the league says about finances. Obviously, the MLS is a completely different structure. But by doing that, they're basically what City has done is what the rich do in the world. They've figured out a way to do basically offshore tax havens, in a sense, by spreading out their revenue under one massive multinational corporation. Now, I'm not sure that's what the article basically said. It said this is what City could do. This is what maybe they're trying to do, because they could go outside of all these ideas of financial fair plays and take the revenue of all these other places and put it on their books and be like, well, we have this much money to spend, when really they don't, but they can make it look like that. And as Mitch is saying, they're totally just playing the administration game better, which is honestly like what the rich do in the United States. They just know how to play taxes better than the other teams. And so City are like the uber rich in many ways, also the way they think about money, and the rest of the teams are still playing checkers because they've kind of figured it out. And I don't unfortunately see another team knocking off City, because Jeff, you say it all the time, and it's really the best way. They have 2 full starting 11s. To be fair, like they probably could field two full starting 11s.
The way they rotate, the way that I will give Pep credit, and he's a good manager, obviously, but he has all the pieces to make the rotations, to make them always like fresh, and he's playing the right players, and guys just seem, they get it. It's like guys are rotated in and out, and there is a chemistry on that team. Now, obviously, they play really well, and they got Foden and De Bruyne, and they're good. And obviously, you have to still gel as a team to win the Premier League. I'm not going to discredit them for that, but they do. I mean, they just can buy whoever they want. That Ake transfer is just rubs me the wrong way. It's just
salt in the wound.
It's just fucking salt in the wound. Like, I don't want Ake to play for Spurs or anything, but he is a he's a homegrown player. They put him on. They have players on that team who just ride the pine because they're homegrown, and that is just so backwards. And I know some other teams do that too, but it's just like it's very that Ake could start for many other Premier League clubs, and he goes to City because they basically kept him away from other clubs. It's like a fucking game for them.
That's what I'm saying. 3D chess.
It's a 3D chess. Yeah, it's brutal.
Well, it's funny because you're saying like, a lot of other teams will do that where they'll have a homegrown player to just fill requirements, right? But usually it's players from their academy that they're promoting just to be able to afford somebody else being in there, or they'll buy a player for like $2 million, not a $20 million, £20 million defender who, like you're saying, could easily start for not even just, mid-table teams. We're talking there's Europa League challenging teams that would be glad to have him, and there's Champions League challenging teams that would be glad to have him as an option, right? Also, one other thing too is that we're talking about kind of this stratification within the Premier League, but there's something else that's happening too, which is that the Premier League is separating from other leagues. And I know that we don't talk too much about other leagues, but this is important to know that since the Sky deal, basically, where a couple of years back, where basically just a huge injection of money into the Premier League, where even your like lowest club is basically getting guaranteed 30 million, I think, or something like that. Since then, we have had Liverpool in 2 finals, 1 final without an English team, and now and one of those Liverpool finals, 2 finals, one of which had 2 English teams, one that had no English teams, and now another 2 English team final. So we're talking about English teams coming back, where I don't know if you guys remember, but like 2013, people were asking, is England out of the Champions League? Do English teams have what it takes? Well, now they get this cash injection into the league, and all of a sudden you have English teams coming back up. And that snowballs, because the longer you stay in the Champions League, if you get into the semis and into the finals, it is a tremendous amount of money, huge difference from group stages. That cascades, because now it's like, oh yeah, these English teams are in the Prem. Their coefficient goes up. They get to keep their 4 spots. They get to keep more money. They're bringing more money in. They attract more talent. And we're seeing it already, where if you're at the top team of another league, there's a good chance you might be poached by a Premier League team that's 2nd or 3rd place, right? In the same way that Bayern kind of poaches German players from all over the place, Premier League teams are starting to poach players in similar ways, where you can play for Juve, for example. You could also just play for Chelsea, right? And Juve might, well, this year they didn't, but Juve might win normally, but you're still going to make more money at Chelsea. You're still going to make more money at Liverpool. You're still going to make more money in any of these English places, and you're going to feel more secure with, I think, Europe at that point too.
I was going through my head while Mitch was talking, and I think he's totally right, because you have 2005 Liverpool win the Champions League final against AC Milan. '06, Arsenal's in the final. They lose to Barcelona. '07, Liverpool's back in the final. They lose to AC Milan. '08, all English final. Manchester United, Chelsea. '09, Manchester United, Barcelona. 10, that was Inter, Bayern. 11, Manchester United's again. 12, Chelsea won it. But that Chelsea team shouldn't have won the Champions League. Any real Chelsea fan will tell you that. We just played. It was like the show, the movie Who Wants to Be Slumdog Millionaire. We literally had everything just hit at the right moments. We went to the new camp and we're down 10 men and had 2 shots on goal and they were both goals. No one does that. So 2013, total conversation. That was Borussia Dortmund, Bayern. 2014, that was Real Madrid, Atletico. And then it was basically Spanish because Real Madrid won it. Then Barcelona won it. Then Real Madrid won it 3 more times. 2019 is then when you're starting to talk about that. And I've never thought about that. But if that is when the injection came in between, in the 18-19 summer before Liverpool then played Real Madrid in the final, they lost. Then they won the next year against Tottenham. Yeah, I mean, we're back, right? You have City and Chelsea are in the Champions League final. I think actually, ironically, Chelsea deserved to be in this final more than they deserved to be in the 2012 final, even though that 2012 team would kick the shit out of this team because they had beasts. Like, Thiago Silva wouldn't have stopped Didier Drogba, right? Azpilicueta wouldn't have stopped Didier Drogba. So Conte maybe would have been the only thing because I think he could have stopped even at Juan Mata at his time. Anyway, we're going down a Chelsea hole, and we could actually talk about Chelsea more now in the Champions League. But I think you're so right that the money is trickling down and it's helping out. And, you see a team like Leeds, where at the end of the season, they came up and they were probably the most exciting team to watch week in, week out. If you just picked a team and said, I'm not going to watch any other team play. And they finished top 10, which is great. And they finished a stone's throw away from Arsenal, from Everton, from
But
big,
you know how that happened?
big clubs.
But you know how that happened? They have like a billionaire owner who injected a shitload of money into that club.
Oh, it's about money. I'm just saying.
But I'm just pointing. I know you know that, but I'm pointing out that two years before they even got promoted, because they almost got promoted the season before last, and it just didn't work out. They fell apart in the last couple games. But they got injected with money like 3 years ago. If you watch that documentary, they had a new owner come in and said, "Look, forget it. We're getting back to the Premier League. We're just gonna go buy a bunch of $10 to $20 million players, say young players who like have promise and hustle your ass off, and you get the Premier League." And now they're very, very established in the Premier League. There's like they're legitimately better than the other 10 clubs that are below them. So that's because of money.
It's because of money. Can we look now briefly ahead at the Champions League and what we think our thoughts are? I said on the last pod where we talked about the Champions League final, I said City will probably win out the game 5 out of 10 times, 50%. Before the final whistle, they'll win 3-1, 3-2, whatever. Chelsea have a 30% chance of winning before the final whistle, but there's a 20% chance it goes to overtime.
Do you want to adjust that after today's game?
I want to adjust it only if Conte and Mendy can't play. If Conte and Mendy can't play, it's 20% chance Chelsea, probably 20% chance Chelsea win outright, 70% chance City win, and 10% chance it goes to overtime. So only 3 out of 10, if there's 10 marbles in the bag, only 3 times does Chelsea even have a chance of winning. And one of those 3 would be going to overtime, where I don't know. What do you guys think after? I mean, the other thing is like we need to look at the long-term trend, right? We're just so fresh off today. But if you guys have $100 each, what do you put down on? Mitch, what do you put? Chelsea or City? You have $100. Your cold hard earned cash.
City all the way, especially because as many problems of City have had in the Champions League, Pep's won it before. He knows how to win it. He's lost it too, but he has won it before. And I think at this point, everything's clicking in the right way. We talked already about psychological effects. I think City are where they need to be mentally to win it, where they haven't been in previous years. Not even close. So yeah, City.
Jeff?
I agree. If I'm putting money down, I'm going to say City. I'm going to be rooting for Chelsea, obviously. But Conte, I think there's a good chance Conte will play, which will be nice and good for their midfield. But if Mendy's out, I just worry that I'm not worried so much there's going to be a lot of shots on Kepa or whatever. I just think that Mendy provides more leadership in the back than Kepa, and also a better shot stopper. But regardless, you guys, what it is actually, let me wipe that. What it is that Chelsea cannot score goals against Villa, against anybody.
No, we can't score goals. This is like a STD that we currently have, and we're trying to take some medicine for it. I don't know what that looks like.
It's really bad. It's hard to watch.
One of the things I will say is that unless an English club plays another English club in the final, English clubs are normally the underdog. 2005, underdog to AC Milan. 2006, Arsenal was underdog to Barcelona. I don't care what you say. Ronaldinho was on that team. He just won the Golden Ball like 5 minutes before the game. So Chelsea, 2012, we go to Allianz. I honestly thought we had a 1 in 10 shot, and we won somehow. I think Chelsea thrives on the underdog. We're going to thrive on basically the idea that like we're happy to be here. And the pressure is insurmountable on City. And there's not going to be a moment throughout the game where if City take their foot off the gas, even just a second, they're going to get punished. I don't know what that looks like. That's going to look like Diaz getting caught out and being overconfident and pulling somebody down for a red card. It's going to be, I don't know. I obviously think Chelsea are going to win, but I do believe what Mitch said is so true. City's never looked this ready to lift that cup. They just actually look like they're clicking on all. So if I have $100, I put it down on Chelsea because I'm not putting it down on friggin' City.
There's going to be more City fans, I think, there in Portugal.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean,
they're paying for flights.
Yeah, they're paying for
flights.
Yeah, City's paying. The owners are basically busing people. I use the word busing, but flying people out to Portugal, to Portugal. Whatever it is.
So you guys both go City. I'm only going Chelsea just because it's my team.
Yeah, sure.
If I had $1 million, would I put it on City? Maybe. But I think the final is going to be closer than people think because while Chelsea cannot score, we do not get scored upon easily. Obviously, today we gave up 2 goals. If Kepa's in goal, though, I go with City. I know that sounds horrible. I just have zero faith. He's broken my heart.
I have a little anecdote about that, too. Did you guys hear... who was it? It was Tielemans. Did you guys hear about the Tielemans text?
Who do you text?
No, Tielemans apparently got a text the night before saying to take a long shot on Kepa.
Yes. We heard that when we were watching because they were like he's let in 12 of 25 shots or something like that. It's like one of 2,
so
right?
If Kepa has to face De Bruyne, that's rough. I mean, he's one of the most lethal distance shooters in the world, and if Pep plays his cards right, I feel like they're going to be peppering Kepa for rebounds. So it's going to be De Bruyne just taking shots from anywhere, and just waiting for Mahrez or Foden to scoop in and tap one in. And I think that is something important that City can take advantage of Chelsea's weaknesses. I don't know if Chelsea can actually take advantage of City's weaknesses, which their weaknesses would be
what are City's weaknesses? Sorry to cut you off.
Getting in behind their back line when they push it up.
Because they press.
They're so fast. I mean,
they're so fast.
See, you should be able to, right? Because they have Pulisic who can get in behind and get a fantastic ball in. But the problem that you have is Werner. And if Werner can score, you're fine. You can get in behind City's line and Werner will score. But, I mean, captain disallowed goal.
He can't stay on sides.
Can't stay on side. Captain disallowed goal. Okay, that's what I'll say. If Werner scores, Chelsea win. I don't see a game in which Werner scores and they don't win because that means other things are clicking as well. I also just feel like City are freaking brutal in the back. If they play Diaz and Stones, 2 studs in the middle, literal trees, and then they have Cancelo and Walker on the outsides, those guys are fast. I'm thinking it's honestly going to come down to goalkeepers. Not saying that City and Chelsea are even. I think City is actually a much better team, but I think Chelsea's defense has been proven to be fairly strong. Like, we don't give away many goals, so I think it's going to come down to goalkeepers. I think there's going to be some goalkeeper error. I don't know if it's like a Karius with Real Madrid and Liverpool where he just drops it in the goal, but I think it's going to come down to goalkeepers. And, like, Ederson likes to come out and be sweeper keeper, and he could get caught out. Mason Mount could hit one from, like, 40. Looking back at all the past finals, not the Champions League final from last year, but, like, previous finals, there's always weird goals. I've seen a lot of weird goals in finals. Like the World Cup final, that was a weird goal. Lloris just dropped the ball in the goal. He doesn't do that. So I'm going to, my thing is I'm going to predict it's going to come down to goalies. Whoever's going to show up more.
I hope Mendy plays. I don't want to see Kepa play.
I want Mendy play because his story is so ridiculous. A couple years ago, the guy was unemployed. He couldn't find work. Now he's in the Champions League final. It's crazy. Unreal. It's an unreal story. And obviously, you know what? If Pulisic could just score a goal, I think I'd be fine with City winning. I'd be like, it's fine. I've seen a U.S. player start and score a goal in the Champions League. Like I don't know. I never thought I would see. Like I guess in theory it's not improbable, but not impossible, but it just seems so far fetched.
I'm just like imagining all of these little like permutations and stuff, and it's just I think one thing that's kind of funny about this matchup is that both teams are missing exactly what they need, which is a striker to exploit the backline, right? And the players they're looking to get would do that, right? For City, one of the reasons they want someone like Haaland or Kane is because when you have Thiago Silva sitting in a low block, you need somebody who can push him. You need somebody who can go up against him. You don't need Gabby Jesus, right? And vice versa. With the back line that City's going to push up, that's the time where that's why they brought in Timo Werner. You need that Chelsea player who can get in behind, stay onside, and exploit that space. If either team can figure out a way to exploit that side, that whatever thing that's missing, that's who's going to win. And I agree with you. It's going to come down to testing the keeper too, because I don't think there's going to be a ton of chances. I think City's going to set up, balls to the wall, but I think Chelsea are going to defend it well. They're going to be able to shut it down, and it's just going to come down to, will Kepa make a mistake? If Mendy's playing, will they be able to put enough pressure on Mendy? If Mendy plays, there's a good chance that goes to overtime. If Kepa plays, it's in 90 minutes.
If Kepa plays, it's in 90 minutes one way or the other. Maybe Kepa scores a hat trick. I don't know. Mitch, if you're thinking about the exploitations and the weaknesses of both teams, assuming that Mendy plays, assuming that both teams are full squad, whatever their best 11s are, what is Chelsea's weakness? And then what is City's weakness? I think you said City's weakness is just if people get in behind them. But is there something else? Because I feel like that's obvious for any team. If you get behind their back four, you're in on goal. So what are the two weaknesses? And I guess what I'm trying to say is, what do you think Guardiola and Tuchel now have 6 to 7 days where they get to basically over-tactify themselves? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think City. So when I say getting in behind their back line, it's not just because of the normal, that's anybody's thing. It's because of how high they push their line, how high up their fullbacks are going to be. And also Ederson has, not always, but he has a mistake in him. He has a mistake of arrogance in him. And I live it every day. Alisson does the same thing, right? It's that Samba life. I don't know. But so that's where I think it's problematic, because if you send 3 or 4 solid chances behind that line, that's scary. And again, we said that City are doing great mentally now, but on that, do you want to risk it on that third time the offside trap gets beat? Do you really want to be in that territory? So that's where I think there's something to exploit. And if you score 1, if it's 1-0, you sit back and you're good. I think the other place where City, on the other end, where they have an issue is if Chelsea sit back, which they probably will, they don't have a way to unlock that defense outside of De Bruyne doing something fantastic, which he can. He is that player, but you never want to be in that position. As a lifelong Argentina fan, I can tell you, you never want to be in the position, even if you have the best player in the world, hoping that they figure it out for the team. And I think that's a weird position they're going to be in, because if you have Thiago Silva, Rudiger, and Azpilicueta, whoever the hell you want to have back there, you have 3 people in front of Mendy. Your long shots aren't going to go in because Mendy is going to be flying everywhere like a cat. And you're not going to be able to work the ball in between, and you have no one to cross to. So it comes down to, can De Bruyne just get something in there? Is there going to be a deflection? Do you just shoot it hoping that Rudiger sticks out his foot and it goes into, the bottom corner? That's where I think City's problems are. For Chelsea, I just think they're not going to be able to exploit that back line. I don't think they're going to be stopped. I don't think it's going to be a 4-0 disgusting match. I think it's going to be grindy, and I think it's going to come down to a few chances on each side. A few chances for Chelsea, and City constantly going, but not getting too much quality. So for me, City's biggest thing is Chelsea's biggest thing is not having someone to exploit that back line.
In the most recent games, when we've played them in the semifinal of the FA Cup, and then we played them in the league, and they did not put out their best team. I can admit that, but I don't think we did either. We had Alonso out there. He's not part of our best squad, and we beat them. I'm trying to fight against what I think is obvious, which is City is so much better than Chelsea, as a Chelsea fan. But I think we're all going to have a really good final. Chelsea doesn't have boring finals. We've gone to PKs twice. If it goes to PKs and City lose on PKs, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow, because they've been trying to buy this trophy forever. Teams have brought Bayern said, Guardiola, come, we want you to bring us the trophy. Now, Guardiola didn't do that, but he may have left something that actually did get them the trophy last year. I don't know. Jeff, what do you think? Well, do you agree with Mitch on his? I agree 100%.
Yeah, for Chelsea, it's the fact that they can't unlock a defense. It doesn't matter if it's Villa, if it doesn't matter if it's pretty much any defense that they play up against. It seems like they're really, really, really struggling just to create chances, quality chances, and keep Werner on sides and just get Havertz to do something. And it's a lot of the times it's pulling a lot of times they're Mason Mount's bailing them out, right? That's what it feels like with a wonder strike, or just a really good, just some really good passage of play from Mount, and he's been class this season, one of their best players. And Pulisic just not being able to take on defenders one-on-one, just seeming to be a little bit behind, coming off injuries and not getting up to speed fully. I think he's just about there now. I think, he's a direct player, right? He's not going to do anything too crazy, but the way that Chelsea is set up at the front, they don't have any presence per se in the box, and I'm talking about height. Like a Giroud just hasn't been able to find form and find himself into the squad, and he would be that guy. The same with Tammy Abraham, and they don't have a player to utilize to have their wingbacks whip crosses into the box. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that threat, you become kind of one-dimensional, right?
And that's what Mitch is talking about.
And there's no way, and they just don't have it. And they thought Werner was going to be that guy, and he hasn't become that guy. I don't know if he'll ever get there, but he gets fouled a lot. He thinks he gets fouled a lot, so he gets hacked a lot, and they don't get called, but he does get calls. And he finds himself offsides all the time, or just missing chances and being a bozo in the box. And I'm sick of seeing. I mean, he does do a lot positive. He does a lot of positive things with the ball, but he's got to score. He's number 9. He's got to score.
Mitch, what do you think? Who do you think City win the Champions League? Who's their player of the game?
It's funny. I was actually just thinking about who would be Chelsea's player of the game if they won, but I'll start with City. If City win, their player of the game will be either Diaz or De Bruyne. And I know that sounds like the obvious thing, but I think if Chelsea have any chances, they're going to have to be wiped out by Diaz. So that's the important thing. But honestly, I think it's probably going to be De Bruyne, and I think it's going to come down to him taking some big risks with shots just to create chaos. So that's where I think he's going to shine. So let's forget Kepa for a second. Let's say best case scenario, it's Mendy. It's the kind of situation where I don't think De Bruyne would score. I think somebody will get a tap in off of him. With Chelsea, I got to say, if Chelsea does anything positive, I think it's going to be because of Mason Mount. And I think, not even kidding, I think it's something where Mason Mount scores. I think there's crazy counterattack. Everybody's going. Werner is too far ahead, so you cut back to Mason Mount, who's making the second run. That's Chelsea's escape plan to me. And honestly, I think at that point, maybe you can do something with Werner too, where just make him save further back, make him wait. Have Tuchel screaming to him, don't run yet. I don't know. Something to keep him on side. But it's those second runs that could do it.
If it's Chelsea's starting 11, best 11 versus City's best 11, I don't know if Bernardo Silva's Silva's in their current best 11. But I think for City, it will come down to tertiary players like Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez, because those are the guys that can unlock a defense, because their movement off the ball and their one-on-one can sometimes be so mesmerizing and unbalancing. I think De Bruyne will totally be neutralized by Conte. I think Conte is just going to honestly dominate him. Real Madrid had no answers for Conte. He won back-to-back man of the matches. I foresee, like I said, Bernardo Silva or Riyad Mahrez being the ones that bubble to the top. And for Chelsea, I think, talking about Conte, I think it will come down to Conte, or it will come down, honestly, I'm going to put some weight on Pulisic or Havertz. It's going to be one of those guys. Werner's just not going to do it. We've had the enough case study to think differently, and I think it will come down to Pulisic or Havertz, some kind of magic there. And I don't know how that happens, but that's my feeling. But if you think about that, in those instances, Chelsea's just really being a lot more responsive than they are being on the front foot, and that's where I think it's a big worry for Chelsea fans.
Yeah, with Werner too. I mean, I keep on seeing people saying, "Oh, he's so unlucky." There's only so long that you can blame luck on it. If you consistently are getting goals disallowed like that, look, there's bad luck where you head it, and it hits off your arm. That happened. But if you're offside constantly, no, you're being played. You don't know how to play an offside trap, and I don't know if that's an adjustment or if that's because he played a little more free roaming at Leipzig. I don't know what it is, but that's what your summer is going to be. Your summer at this point for Tuchel, I think it's figuring out how to get Werner, not just onside, how to get Werner reading the game better and not. Anytime I've seen him run and play, he seems to be in his own world. He seems to be removed from the game. And it's great, but it looks like a training exercise, not like he's in a game. Where he's just like, I'm going to try to do this thing, see if it works, not this is what needs to happen right now. I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah, it makes total sense. I feel like we've talked good enough about the Champions League. And obviously, most people are like, yeah, City's going to win, whatever. Most Chelsea fans are pretty much, we want Chelsea to win, but I think that there's a fairly realistic understanding of what's out there, and our chances are probably somewhere between 20 to 30% of winning. But, you'll take that any day of the week if you can get to lift the big ears. So we don't have fantasy. Oz won fantasy, and I talked to him. He's going to get one of the mugs from boysinbolos.com. Shout out. And we don't need to look at the next week. So
that's it.
I think
Spurs finished 7th. My prediction was wildly wrong.
What'd you say Spurs were going to finish?
4th.
Oh, that's cute.
It's cute.
I think there's stuff to say about Spurs, though, because I feel like today's game was sort of a small encapsulation or preview of what's so terrifying about next season for Spurs. I mean, 3 of your goals were from players that may not be there next year.
When you say may, it's like 95% chance won't be, probably.
Yeah. Well, with Bale, he never got along with Zidane. Now Zidane's gone. So now he can go back to Madrid.
He can go back to Madrid where Ancelotti could be back, and they lifted it in 2014.
Yeah, and I think he likes this that Spanish weather. And
yeah, it's better for his backswing.
Yeah, it's way better for his backswing. And he's found a little bit of form, so he might get some PT there.
Yeah, and they're going to clear house. And
yeah.
He and Benzema could be.
Yeah, it could be fine there.
Could be fine.
They asked very little of him in terms of like defending and running, as you know.
And I don't think we've said it on the pod. We said it pre-recording, but Mitch and I want to thank you as a Spurs fan.
You got it.
From the bottom of our hearts.
Yep.
We thank you, Jeff.
We had to do, well, it was nice. It was like a little consolation, just kind of smacking down Leicester.
The third goal was phenomenal.
Third goal was...
You saw that, Mitch, where
God, yeah.
the ball against the grain from Gareth Bale, there's like 4 or 5 players in the Prem that actually look to make that pass. Sonny gets it, drops it off. Kane gets it. Sambas, salsas, bachatas, drops it back. And Bale had the peace of mind. This is what I'm telling you, Jack. If you haven't seen this goal or if you see it, go back and watch it. Bale doesn't run in the box like some amateur, like, oh, that's where the party is. I'm going to go to like the frat house. He waits outside So that way Kane can play him the ball and he's coming into it rather than trying to go back and readjust and swing with a different foot. It was so class. I think it was one of the best goals of the season. And Jeff and I jumped up and down and screamed, and we scared his 2 1-year-old twins, and they started crying. So,
but you're right. I mean, like Kane leaves because he's probably going to go to City.
And he scored 2 goals.
And Kane scored a goal.
He scored 1 goal.
And Bale scored 2.
Bale scored 2 goals.
Yeah, and we're potentially going to leave. We're going to lose arguably probably 2 best players in the team. I mean, Son for that first half of the season was really good.
I think Højbjerg
was good. I mean, he had some distribution problems. I think a little bit, and same with Reguilon. He's out of form. I think Spurs will be fine if they can get a center back, but I mean, they obviously need a number 9 now if they lose Kane. I think a lot of people understand why Kane would leave. It's like they're not going to be in Champions League. They're not going to be in Europa League. He's not going to wait around. He wants to win silverware. He's going to do it with a team that's going to actually compete, and that's probably City. And City can just move around some money and spend 130 million.
Just move around some money.
Around some money.
Make have all the CPAs that are on. Just fudge a digit. Let's talk to Brian down in accounting.
Man. Well, going back to that administrative topic we had.
That's it. Administrative.
Yeah, but going back to that with City, that they know how to work it. I feel like Dan Levy's in that position where he thinks he knows how to work it and he doesn't. And
that's so true.
Oh my god.
He's just like, I don't know. He pops in with the Rolex and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I know how stocks work," and then loses all his money.
He's like, I just downloaded Robinhood,
right? And it's funny because he's done great stuff. Like the sale of Bale the sale of Bale is great, but I mean, since then, it's sort of he's been figured out, and it sucks, right? Because, I mean, I don't think there's been a club for me in the last bit, and this is coming from a Liverpool fan, that's had as much bad luck as Spurs, just because you got your stadium and then you got COVID. What do you do?
$1 billion of debt that you need to pay off, and you can't put people in the stadium. That's insane. Like, they build the Colosseum in Rome, and then there's the bubonic plague, and all the Senate's just like, are you shitting me?
Yeah, and then so Spurs, so that's the first thing. They had the money to put in the stadium, but now that's an expensive stadium to upkeep, and you don't have any revenue coming in for that stadium. That sucks. Now you're out of Europe, might be in Europa League. That's a huge revenue loss. Kane's going to go, and that's going to be there's going to be a good chunk of money if he goes. But can they even invest that money appropriately? I mean, at that point, what do? Do you just basically instead of trying to replace Kane, do you restructure the whole team with players that are going to pan out really well in 2 years and just take the L and try to get into Europa League, try to do really well in that? Or do you try to get a Kane back, but not being able to offer or guarantee European football?
Well, that's part of the problem too, is like you can't attract players because they don't want to play for your team. I mean, they don't want to play in a team that's basically in a semi-rebuild phase and run by a bunch of bozos, like who don't know how to buy players, and you have a chairman or an owner who is way too involved with team selection, way too involved with picking players. He doesn't let the managers pick the players. I don't think many of those signings that they signed this year were Mourinho picks. They were like, I know Bergram wasn't. I know some of these signings players that, I bet Mourinho was like, they're fine, I guess, but I don't really want. He tries to moneyball, right? He tries to moneyball this shit, but he doesn't know. He's not playing the right game. He's not even playing the game. He doesn't even know what he's doing. So they're like bickering about money to buy Grealish or to buy Bruno Fernandes, 2 players that they could have easily got if they just ponied up an extra few million. They dickered around and they lost out. And see how that worked out. The reason why United's in second place is because of Bruno Fernandes.
Jeff, I do think that Mitch and I want to take a moment. We want to thank you for being the first Premier League team in the European Conference League. Insert applause.
We might be the first team who qualified, we're the only team in it right now. They don't even know the other teams.
No, that's it. It's just you guys. It's just you guys.
Spurs.
They're just trying to get you a trophy.
Yeah, they're just Spurs.
Listen, great accomplishment for Ryan Mason in his first season as a coach. He qualified for a European something.
Say what you want about Ryan
A
Mason.
European something. Yeah.
Say what you want about Ryan Mason, but he played Bale when Bale needed to be played.
Honestly, that's the telling Jeff that's the only thing Mourinho didn't do. If Mourinho just played Bale, he probably still have a job. He just like kept, I don't know, not playing Bale.
Yeah, but that's another thing. Who do you get to replace Ryan Mason? Like, you're going into the summer now without. Do you stick with Ryan Mason?
No.
Do you hope that he pans out like Ole, or?
No, he's like, he should go and like manage a championship club, or he should go manage some lower level European club, because he could manage a club. I think he loves Spurs, so I think if they hire a manager, he's gonna fall back into another support role. So I think he's like with the club. They're probably taking care of him. I think they're gonna sign, and our last guest disagreed with me on this, but I think they're gonna sign Graham. I think it's either gonna be Graham Potter, or he shakes his head like. Jarrett's shaking his head like, don't sign Graham Potter. But who's going to go there? No good manager is going to go.
A manager will go there. Going back to what Mitch said about Europe, I think that there are managers who would rather manage Tottenham or a top 8 team in England than manage the winning team in Austria, the winning team in Portugal, the winning team wherever. Sure. Once you have that on your CV, it's a wrap, and you get to you're going to have more money to play with. You're going to actually manage more games. I don't know. I think you guys will get a cool manager, and if you don't, I'm actually fine with Ryan Mason if I'm you guys. There's little to no pressure.
The problem with Ryan Mason is that
he's 29.
He's young. He doesn't have enough experience. He doesn't know I don't think he knows the other leagues. I don't think he knows what players to suggest to Levy. I think it's too much.
He was born in the 90s.
It's too much. It's too much control. I think he's gonna. It gives unchecked power, I think, to Levy and to Hitchin. Who's their like head
I
of
think that they're
scouting.
going to have unchecked power no matter what. They had the most hubris-led manager of all time, and Levy still had the power.
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters who you put
That's
there.
fair, but I don't think Ryan Mason's the right guy yet.
All right. Well,
Mitch,
I think we're going to thank
you
Mitch
for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, guys. It's been a crazy season.
He didn't even rub any of Liverpool's success in our face.
Nope.
Nope.
He doesn't have to. The results speak for themselves.
Nope. I don't have to. Somehow Spurs won, Chelsea lost, and we're all going to Europe.
I'm scared to jinx it, man. I'm scared to jinx it because I don't know how we got there. I just don't. This has been one of the most horrible seasons to watch, and I was around for Hicks and Gillett, so.
Well, I will say on that note, I will say that it's been refreshing to see actual fans back in the stadiums. There's been like an actual ambiance of like football and people chanting and people booing and not just like fake crowd noise from NBC Sports. And that's been nice. It's only been like 8,000 fans, but they make their presence known.
Yeah, you know it's bad when I was like excited to hear Villa fans boo Werner. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Mitch, enjoy the heat.
I will think about you as I am sweating on the way to the grocery store.
You're such a nice guy.
Thanks, Mitch.
No one's ever said that to me before. Thank you, Mitch.
All right. Ciao, Jarrett.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the Boys and Bolos podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, Twitch at Boys and Bolos.
If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out. You can hit us on any of the social media accounts that Jeff just mentioned or email us directly at boysandbolos@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening and see you next time.